At 9:23 on a random Tuesday, a message lands in someone's inbox, and the internet does what it always does: panics first and asks questions later. The post says there's a secret briefing. It's marked urgent. It's about a child, and it claims the kind of inside access that makes people lean closer to their screens like they're hearing a whisper through a locked door. Now here's the uncomfortable question. What if the most explosive royal leak you've seen online wasn't a leak at all? What if it was a blueprint? Because the truth is, there's a specific kind of story that keeps showing up again and again, different names. Different sources, same structure, and it's designed for one thing: to keep you watching, keep you angry, and keep you sharing. And once you recognize the pattern, you'll never unsee it. The first giveaway is how these stories begin. They don't start like normal reporting. They start like a movie scene pretending to be a news article. Exact time, exact day, exact month. Then a dramatic object, a confidential briefing, a sealed document, an urgent memo. And before you've even processed what you're reading, you're already being told it's real, authenticated, verified, cross-checked. Multiple sources. It's the language of certainty. Delivered at high speed because the story doesn't want you thinking. It wants you feeling. And then comes the magic ingredient: the anonymous hero, the insider who can't be named, the staffer who couldn't stay silent, the source who delivers one perfect line, something like a slogan, because slogans are memorable. And memorable lines travel further than facts. This is how the hook sets. But the next move is the one that really makes these stories dangerous. They borrow legitimacy. You'll notice the same names used over and over. Major broadcasters, famous newspapers, royal correspondents, palace briefings. Sometimes it's the BBC. Sometimes it's a top newsroom. Sometimes it's a trusted editor who went pale. And the psychology is simple. If you recognize the brand, you relax. Your brain goes, oh, that place wouldn't touch this unless it was real. Except, real journalism doesn't usually sound like this. When something truly massive happens, especially involving powerful institutions, the story doesn't appear as a single dramatic monologue. It appears as a trail, multiple outlets confirming official statements, documented processes, named editors, and clear wording that leaves less room for fantasy. A real example. The BBC's Diana interview scandal wasn't a secret dossier that blew up overnight. It became a documented public controversy with an official apology and clear accountability language. Reported openly by mainstream outlets. Good Morning America, that's what real looks like. Messy, public, sourced, and traceable. The viral palace leak genre is the opposite. It's sealed. It's shadowy. It's perfectly written. It's built to feel like you're hearing something you're not supposed to hear, because that feeling is addictive. And then comes the emotional target. A child. Because the fastest way to melt skepticism is to trigger protection mode. People can debate politics. People can debate royal drama. But the second you place a child at the center, the audience stops evaluating and starts reacting. That reaction is the engine. You'll see the story frame itself like this: we don't know the full truth, but this is too serious to ignore. Okay? And that sounds responsible. Until you notice what happens next. Instead of evidence, you get escalation, a pattern, then staff accounts, then notes, then footage, then an investigation, then polling, then a constitutional crisis. It's like leveling up in a game. Each stage is designed to answer the viewer's natural doubt with bigger stakes. You think, would this really happen? The story responds, yes, and it's worse than you think. You think? Why hasn't anyone confirmed this? The story responds because powerful people are hiding it. You think this seems too extreme? Fina's story responds, that's why it's shocking. See the trick? It's not giving you proof. It's giving you a reason to stop asking for proof. And the biggest illusion is the verification language, authenticated through multiple methods. It's a phrase that sounds official while revealing nothing. Verified by who? Using what? What documentation is publicly accessible? What independent outlets confirmed it? What named institution has acknowledged it? In real situations, especially serious ones, there are usually records, legal statements, official communications, reputable coverage that can be cross-checked across multiple trusted sources. With these viral scripts, you don't get a trail. You get a fog machine, and the fog is intentional. Because fog makes people fill in gaps with imagination. Imagination is always more dramatic than reality. Here's where it gets even more clever. A lot of hoax-style royal stories don't come from nowhere. They anchor themselves to real, verifiable facts, so the fake parts feel like they belong. For example, there's real reporting around Queen Camilla's public title wording how consort has been dropped in some official contexts, and how the presentation of the title evolved. GBH, that's a real thing you can verify. There's also real reporting around royal media storms, public trust, and how scandals get handled. Again, traceable, public, and sourced. Good Morning America. So, a viral storyteller grabs a real detail, something harmless but true, and uses it as the "this checks out" anchor. Then they attach something explosive to it, and by the time your brain thinks to separate them, the emotion has already glued them together. That's why the scripts feel so smooth. They're not just inventing. There are EMIXING.now. If you're learning YouTube automation, here's the part that matters. This playbook works because it's paced like a thriller. Every paragraph ends with a cliff edge. Just when you feel like you understand, it hints that you don't. Just when the story calms down, it spikes again. Just when you expect proof, it delivers more narrative. And the audience stays because they're waiting for the moment where everything becomes undeniable. But in these stories, that moment never arrives because the point isn't clarity. The point is continuation. So how do you spot this fast without doing an hour of digging? Give yourself 30 seconds and ask for questions. First, who is reporting this? Not who is being mentioned, who is actually publishing it. Is it a reputable outlet with standards, or a random channel page with dramatic thumbnails and no sourcing? Second, what is the evidence? Not sources say, not insiders claim. Actual evidence you can independently verify. Third, what would real confirmation look like here? Would there be a statement? A public inquiry? Multiple trusted outlets? If the story claims huge institutions are involved, you should see huge institutional footprints. Fourth, is the language trying to make you emotional before it makes you informed? If the story is pushing outrage ahead of verifiable facts, you're not being informed, you're being steered. And if you're building your own channel, this is the line you don't want to cross. Presenting unverified claims about real people, especially serious accusations. If you've solved the case, because it doesn't just risk platform issues, it risks harming real lives. The smarter, safer, and honestly more sustainable angle is this. Tell the story of the internet itself. Make the video about how these rumors are built. Make the viewer feel like they're learning something secret, because they are. They're learning the tricks used to control attention. You can still open with mystery. You can still deliver twists. You can still keep retention high. But the villain becomes the system, not a real child's life. And once you frame it that way, the ending hits harder because it lands on the viewer. The real plot twist isn't what happened behind palace walls. Real plot twist is how easily a script can hijack our instincts, how quickly we'll accept it. Story that feels detailed, even when detail is being used as camouflage. So next time you see a leaked briefing with perfect timestamps, anonymous heroes, instant authentication, an escalation that never stops, pause for 1 second. Ask yourself, is this information? Or is this entertainment wearing a fake press badge? Because if it's the second one, the story isn't exposing someone powerful, it's exposing how powerful a story can be. And if you've seen one of these viral royal leak videos that felt completely real until you looked closer, Drop the title or describe it. What was the detail that convinced you at first? But that wasn't the whole story. Because the next time it happens, you'll spot it before the hook even sets. But that wasn't the whole story. Because the leaked briefing trope didn't just come out of nowhere. It has ancestors. One of the reasons these scripts feel so believable is that the public has seen real media scandals involving royals before real cases where documents were forged. Narratives were manipulated, and trusted institutions got it badly wrong. The most famous example is the BBC Panorama Diana interview fallout, where investigations later found the interview was secured using deceptive tactics, including forged documents, and the BBC ultimately apologized publicly. ABC News Plus One. So when a modern viral story says there were internal documents, there were warnings, there were staff concerns, your brain goes, yeah, that kind of thing happens. And it's right, that kind of thing can happen. But here's the key difference. In real scandals, you can point to the receipts. The public record exists. Multiple reputable outlets confirm the same core facts. Official statements get issued. Investigations are named. Timelines match. And the language is cautious because real liability is on the line. ABC News Plus One. At 9:23 on a Tuesday morning in early June, a confidential palace briefing document marked urgent child welfare concern appeared on the desk of the BBC's royal correspondent, delivered by an anonymous source who simply said, "Charlotte deserves better." The 27-page document, authenticated through multiple verification methods, detailed months of alleged psychological abuse directed at 9-year-old Princess Charlotte by Queen Camilla. The allegations were specific, disturbing, and, if true, represented not just family dysfunction, but potential criminal child abuse by the second highest-ranking member of the royal family. The leak. The document's opening paragraph struck like a fire alarm in a sealed room. Its language urgent enough to make even veteran editors stop breathing. It claimed to compile staff observations and documented incidents raising serious appraisings. Child welfare concerns involving Princess Charlotte and Queen Camilla. Warning of alleged psychological manipulation and urging immediate intervention. The phrasing was precise, legalistic, and chillingly calm. Whoever wrote it understood palace systems, understood risk, and understood that once released, nothing would be quietly contained again. Editors at the BBC reportedly spent long, tense minutes authenticating the briefing, tracing internal reference codes, verifying staff identities, and cross-checking dates against public schedules. Each verification tightened the knot. The document was not rumor, not commentary, but something far more dangerous. An internal record leaked by someone who believed silence had crossed into complicity. When the final confirmation came, the room did not celebrate. It went very, very quiet. According to the briefing, the allegations spanned months, beginning shortly after Charlotte's 9th birthday in late spring and continuing into recent weeks. The pattern described was not explosive, but incremental. A series of remarks and moments framed as discipline, yet alleged to erode confidence and safety. One reported incident at Windsor followed a family performance where criticism was allegedly delivered with surgical cruelty. Another at a formal dinner described a public rebuke that left a child silent and shaken. More troubling were descriptions of private exchanges, attributed to witnesses, in which a child was allegedly made to question her value and place within the family. Educators were cited anonymously, noting anxiety, withdrawal, and sudden fear of mistakes. The document emphasized impact rather than intent, arguing that authority magnifies harm when exercised without care. It also referenced private messages from Catherine expressing alarm and asking for guidance. Messages met, according to the record, with advice to manage quietly and avoid escalation during a fragile period. Publication triggered an immediate shockwave. Outrage surged. Advocacy groups demanded answers, and additional staff reportedly came forward, adding corroboration that made dismissal difficult. Inside Kensington Palace, the response was swift and personal. William interrupted mid-meeting, read the briefing in silence as recognition replaced disbelief. He ordered Charlotte home, summoned Catherine, and felt the collision of guilt and fury. The realization that his daughter had suffered while his attention was fixed elsewhere hardened into resolve. Whatever the truth, he would no longer allow proximity, silence, or tradition to place a child at risk. The reckoning had begun. In that moment, the palace stopped being a home and became a battleground where authority, loyalty, and protection would collide, and where consequences, once deferred, would finally arrive without warning for everyone involved across the institution itself alone. The pattern of cruelty. As the briefing ricocheted through newsrooms and palace corridors, something shifted that could not be reversed. The first document had broken the silence, but it did not stand alone for long. In the hours that followed, additional members of royal staff, some current, some recently departed, began to speak through protected channels, offering accounts that expanded the picture in ways that were both consistent and deeply unsettling. What emerged was not described as an isolated clash of personalities or a misunderstanding shaped by generational differences, but as an alleged pattern of sustained psychological pressure focused on a single child. One former nanny who had left royal service several months earlier contacted a major newspaper with meticulous contemporaneous notes she said she had kept out of fear that her concerns would otherwise be dismissed. Speaking under strict anonymity, she described a contrast that troubled her from the beginning. According to her account, Queen Camilla appeared warm and encouraging toward George and Louis, offering praise freely and engaging with them openly. With Charlotte, however, the nanny alleged there was a marked coldness, a tendency toward criticism that was subtle enough to be defensible in isolation, but devastating in repetition. Her notes described moments that, taken together, suggested intent rather than accident. During shared activities, praise was allegedly unevenly distributed. When achievements were similar, Charlotte were minimized or reframed as effort without talent. In one recorded instance, the nanny wrote that both children presented artwork. George's was celebrated and displayed, while Charlotte's was met with a comment suggesting she had merely tried, reinforcing the idea that ability was innate and implicitly absent in her case. Another entry detailed an interaction involving a school assignment. Charlotte, proud of positive feedback from her teachers, reportedly showed her work to Camilla. The response, as recorded, questioned the legitimacy of the praise and suggested it was motivated by sympathy connected to Catherine's illness. The nanny noted that the remark appeared to strike at multiple vulnerabilities at once, undermining academic confidence while entwining it with fear and guilt surrounding her mother's health. She emphasized that such comments were never made in front of Charlotte's parents and were delivered in a tone that allowed plausible deniability. Other staff accounts echoed similar themes. A senior housekeeper described overhearing remarks that framed hierarchy and succession in ways that made a child feel expendable. According to that testimony, Charlotte was told that George mattered more, that parental attention naturally flowed toward the heir, and that this imbalance was simply how royal families functioned. After one such exchange, the housekeeper recalled finding Charlotte distraught, asking what she had done to deserve disfavor. The question itself alarmed staff, suggesting the child had internalized blame rather than recognizing mistreatment. Investigators also reviewed security footage to corroborate timelines and locations. While the recordings contained no sound, analysts noted visible shifts in Charlotte's demeanor during interactions. In several clips, she approached with excitement and left withdrawn, shoulders slumped, avoiding eye contact. One sequence, frequently cited by those who reviewed it, showed Charlotte animatedly presenting something before abruptly discarding it and sitting alone, visibly distressed. Experts later consulted said the footage was consistent with a child experiencing repeated emotional invalidation. Educational records added another layer. Reports from Lamrock School indicated notable behavioral changes beginning in late spring, including anxiety, reluctance to participate, and troubling statements about self-worth. One teacher wrote that Charlotte expressed beliefs about being less valued than others, ideas that appeared sudden and out of character. When gently questioned about their origin, the child reportedly became guarded, a response professionals associate with fear of consequences. Perhaps most striking was information that emerged from within the family itself. According to later briefings, George asked to speak privately with his father after becoming aware that something was wrong. In that conversation, he described witnessing Charlotte in tears after interactions and admitted he had not understood the seriousness at the time. The fact that a child felt responsibility for protecting a sibling underscored how normalized the behavior had become within that environment. A subsequent psychological assessment commissioned by Kensington Palace concluded that Charlotte showed indicators consistent with sustained emotional harm. The report recommended immediate protective measures and therapeutic support. As these findings circulated, public reaction intensified. The narrative shifted decisively away from questions of discipline or personality toward a far more serious reckoning with alleged abuse of power. For many observers, the most troubling aspect was not only the conduct described, but how long it had been allowed to persist in silence, shielded by hierarchy, fear, and the instinct to avoid scandal at almost any cost. The breaking point. Charlotte came home from school early that Tuesday afternoon to find both her parents waiting in the family sitting room. Their expressions grave enough to make her stomach knot instantly. William had spent the past hour rehearsing how to ask questions he feared the answers to, while Catherine, exhausted but insistent, refused to be absent from a moment her daughter clearly needed her. "Come sit with us, sweetheart," Catherine said gently, patting the sofa. "We need to talk about something important, and we need you to be honest with us, even if it's hard." Charlotte hesitated, her face paling. "Am I in trouble?" "No," William said quickly, sitting beside her so she was held between them. "You're not in trouble, but we've learned some things about how Granny Camilla has been treating you. And we need to understand what's been happening. You won't be Poonies."